to the Call on Our Shot podcast. I'm Austin. I'm joined by Logan, and we're back every single Wednesday at 10 a.m. Eastern time. We appreciate you guys for coming out to the live stream, or not the live stream. What am I even saying? To the podcast. We appreciate you guys for listening. If you want to download the podcast in case you want to listen to it on Apple Music, Spotify, wherever you get your podcasts, consider clicking that link down below, thebuzzsprout.com/Call on Our Shot. We'd appreciate it. Logan, how are you doing? We got a lot to recap today. We're going to talk about, obviously, we're going to do a little bit of hinting at the Super Bowl. We're going to recap those conference championship games, which another great weekend in football. We have a couple questions that you guys have to answer, but how are you doing first?
I'm doing amazing. As always, we witnessed an amazing weekend of football. I mean, is it so bold to say maybe one of the best playoffs as a whole of all time? I mean, it was every single game in the playoffs pretty much, besides Steelers-Chiefs, was somewhat competitive or not. It comes down to the wire. It was an amazing weekend, and honestly, I couldn't have asked for more.
Yeah, I agree completely. It reminds me of, and by the way, if you are watching the live stream or watching the podcast, consider clicking that like button too. And also tonight we have our weekly live stream Wednesday night, 6 p.m. Eastern time. But yeah, I remember seeing a tweet from Field Yates. As you know, Field Yates, if you don't know, he's one of the ESPN reporters. We grew up, or we just have been watching their podcast for a while. But he was tweeting out that he had his first daughter, so congrats to him. But his daughter was born before the divisional round. So the only NFL game she's ever seen were these 4 divisionals and then these conference championships. So, hey, I don't know. So she's probably not watching them, but can't beat any of those games because the games we had, I mean, it's hard to top last week with the divisional round games, all those games like one-upping one another, but these games are pretty dang good this weekend. Bengals-Chiefs going into overtime, Rams versus 49ers, and then on that field goal. Man, it's been a whirlwind. I hope the Super Bowl lives up to even half of what these games have been because it's been ridiculous.
I have a feeling it might. It's a really intriguing matchup, and we're not going to talk about it in too much detail really this week, but I'm excited to talk about it in the future.
Yeah, we're going to save a lot of that talk until next week, but we want to shout out all of our COS All-Stars, and we can't shout out every single one of you guys, but there are a lot of people out there, new ones, so we want to shout out Lane, Mississippi Mud, James, Elijah, and Jackson. You know who you are. If you want to become a COS All-Star, you just click the join button next to the subscribe button, which if you aren't subscribed, what are you doing? But you click the join button next to our channel. Costs like $2.99 a month as an appreciation to Logan and I for doing all of our picks videos, just to show a token of our appreciation for all the work we do. We got a lot of things in the chamber. We got baseball season coming up in 2 months, assuming the lockout gets resolved eventually. But we appreciate all those All-Stars. We really can't do it without you guys.
No, the All-Stars, I used to say this on my videos, the All-Stars were what was keeping me going, right? You wake up extremely early doing the NBA videos. I used to wake up, doing the baseball videos at ridiculous hours too. And it's like every morning we wake up, we check who became an All-Star overnight. And that really does make our day. So $2.99, it's not a whole lot. And it's just a little thank you to Austin and I.
Yeah, we love those people. You know who you are if you are an All-Star. I think we're like 80, so we can maybe hit, I don't know, 100 by the end of February. That would be really awesome. Cool. It helps us, and it does give us a little bit of motivation, even when we're in a little bit of a slump, which I have been in the NBA. But those people get me up, and I'm like, all right, I'm doing it for these people. Also doing it for all the other people as we're closing in on 22,000 subscribers, which is ridiculous. But hey, we're road to 25K, road to 100K. We're trying to get that plaque. I want that plaque behind me. I want to be able to look. Oh, actually, I might just be sleeping with the plaque if we're being honest. I might give my girlfriend the boot and say, "Here's a 100K plaque. You're mine."
There's not many things.
Luckily, she's probably not listening to the podcast, so we're fine.
This is a test, Austin's girlfriend. If you are listening, he would appreciate the plaque more. But Austin talks about that damn plaque more than anything. So I mean, just help a brother out. Hit that subscribe button if you already aren't. Really, it does help us. Help us grow.
Yeah, for real. All right, let's hop into the NFL matchups. I mean, that's what people are here. We're here to talk about these matchups, and we got to hop into your pick of the week. And I got to first say, Clown Nose pick of the week. We swept them. I mean, you had the Bengals plus 7.5, which we'll talk about in a second.
Jeez.
I had the 49ers plus 3.5, just squeaking by on the hook, but we'll take it. We'll take a win nonetheless. I was a little scared with that Jimmy Garoppolo interception at the end that they'd house it, and I'd be lost on that bet. But we'll talk about that in a second. Hop into the first game, Bengals-Chiefs, and the floor is yours. I'll mute my mic. You go at it.
Oh my gosh, this is what I've been talking about with the Bengals. There's just something about this team. Like, first of all, Joe Burrow rolls up to the stadium all dripping in swag. I mean, the brother just oozes confidence. It's insane. And his teammates really do feed off that. Joe Burrow, when he's playing football, you can just tell he's having fun. And his team, when they're down at halftime, they've had again against the Chiefs, first matchup they were down at halftime. This matchup they were down at halftime. And they said, we can do it. We can overcome adversity. And that Bengals team, man, I just can't say enough things about, Joe Burrow and that offense, but I really want to shout out that defense. Where the hell was Tyreek Hill, Travis Kelce, and all those boys in the second half? The Bengals defense tightened up and they said, you know what, Patrick Mahomes, we're going to just play like a basketball type defense. We're going to contain you in the pocket. You're not going to scramble around. You're not going to make those, miraculous 80-yard bombs to Tyreek Hill. You're not going to do that. The Bengals defense really rose to the occasion because the comeback wouldn't have been possible had they have not, had their defense have not shown up. But I mean, wow, what a game. And cash the Bengals one more time for me. Oh my gosh, I am such a Bengals fan and a bandwagon fan. Yeah, I don't even, you know what? I'm going to be honest with you guys. I don't own a clown nose because I won't need it. Specifically because I've never gotten a clown nose pick wrong. Boom. Don't need it. You can keep the points. I took the points with Bengals. You know what? Keep them. I don't need them.
We'll wait for your official pick for the Super Bowl. I have a feeling I know which side you're going to go, but you guys will have to listen to next week to find out exactly which way we are going with. But yeah, what a game. And you kind of summarized it. You got to give a hat off to not only Joe Burrow, but also that whole Bengals defense. You're right. They stepped up. I mean, we were texting in the first quarter. We're like, this is not looking good. Patrick Mahomes just lining them up, just sniping and just absolutely destroying their defense. 17 for 19, almost a perfect passer rating in the first half.
Mm-hmm.
And then, I guess they got a little bit of confidence in that last play at the half where Eli Apple tackled Tyreek. Now, we could talk about Eli Apple a little bit, but we don't need to talk about him. He got a little, he's like made one good play and he's like, I'm the best corner in the game. But either way, that's irrelevant. He did play decently well in the second half, but still the Bengals defense, absolutely. Jesse Bates, Von Bell, the whole crew, Trey Hendrickson, even Sam Hubbard, all these guys stepped up. And man, they were probably a lot of no names on that defense prior to Sunday. And I expect they're getting a lot of household names now. Now you're going to really recognize these guys. They're going to get a lot of press love on next Sunday for the Super Bowl. And they won that game solely because of that defense. I mean, Joe Burrow and the team made plays. Shout out to Joe Mixon. I know you had his under for rushing yards, but honestly, the Bengals would not have cashed if Joe Mixon did not step up. He had a great game. And so it was just ridiculous. I mean, who doesn't want to root for the Bengals? I mean, who doesn't like watching the Chiefs too? It's really unfortunate for the Chiefs fans, but they know they'll be back here. They've been back in the AFC Championship 4 straight seasons. They'll be back, and Bengals getting a little bit of time to shine. But man, that game was good, and I was happy to see the Bengals go through. Man, we're gonna have a fun Super Bowl. That's all I know.
I know it is really cool though, because what we've been talking about and I've been talking about for several weeks, the Bengals are an ahead of schedule team, right? We knew if you were to forecast the Bengals 5 years from now, you'd be like, yeah, this is a team that can make some noise 5 years from now or something like that. Here they are with Burrow year 2 and they're in the damn Super Bowl. Like it really is hard to really, talk about how much Cincinnati's exceeded expectations. I think, looking, even forecasting next year, like this is their division to lose. And I mean, yeah, what more can we possibly say about the overachieving Bengals?
I mean, yeah, he's the first overall pick a QB to ever lead his team to the Super Bowl within 2 years. I mean,
yeah,
it's like you just have to respect it. We always knew coming out of college and while he was in college at LSU that Joe Burrow, he had it in him to win those big games, but no one expected him to be this successful this early on. And I was curious. I know Thomas, if he's listening to the podcast, he's all into his collecting cards. And I was curious how much you think a Joe Burrow rookie card would have been at the beginning of the season versus what it is now. Like the value's got to be skyrocketed. I mean, Joe Burrow coming into this year, obviously coming off the ACL tear, which we don't even talk about. Like this guy came off an ACL and MCL tear and he's still lighting it up. And that was in like week 11. So he was early ahead of that schedule. And yeah, he just showed up and showed out and played super well. It's a great story. I'm happy to hear it for the Bengals. I was happy to see AJ Green's post on the Instagram. He was like, I reactivated my Instagram to say congrats to Cincinnati. Because obviously he had been there for 10 years, made the playoffs with Andy Dalton and just never, got it through. But man, I'm just happy for the Bengals. And we'll talk about them in a little bit about Joe Burrow and maybe some future like generational QBs. But It's hard to not. I mean, even if the Bengals do lose on Sunday or next Sunday, it's hard to not be super excited. I mean, like you said, they're ahead of schedule, and I will give people a spoiler. If the Bengals do win, you could expect the following tweet onto Twitter. It will be a post of me betting money on the Jaguars Super Bowl next year and saying if Joe Burrow can do it, so can Trevor Lawrence. Along those lines.
Why do you put those expectations on the poor Jaguars? Don't do that.
I have zero expectations. I'm doing it for the clicks.
Well, it's funny because you might as well donate that money to charity because at least it went to a better place than the damn sports books.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
You're probably right.
This is why you're the worst. You're the worst.
This is true, but we have to say congrats to the Cincinnati Bengals.
Yes.
I mean, I know Scott, he's always asking. I know you kind of flipped on him. You took the Raiders in their opening wild card game, but
I regretted that.
Full circle. You have amended your sins. You understand, that was your fault. But Scott, a loyal Bengals fan, always in our comments. And he's a COS All-Star too, always commenting. And so congrats to him. And there was a guy, Steven, also one of the people that comments on. I talked to him in the Discord. He had a Super Bowl ticket, I believe, for the Rams and the Bengals to make it. It was like ridiculous odds. It was like
really
$5 on it, but it was win like over 200. So congrats to him on that cashing too.
Wow. I mean, he probably listened to my Super Bowl picks because we got to talk about it every single episode. I did say take the Bengals at plus 2,000 odds because I loved that dart throw bet, and here they are in the Super Bowl, one win away from cashing that ticket. And then we talked about value. I know a week or two later, and I said I like the Rams as well. They were like plus 400, 800, something like in the past few weeks. And I'm just saying, man.
Sidebar, do you think we should charge for your picks? You're on an absolute heater.
I don't think I've ever lost a bet. I haven't lost a single bet in February. So this is what I do.
It's on a heater, boys and girls. So great job to the Bengals. Let's move on to the second game though. Rams versus 49ers.
Yeah.
And while this game might not have had, as much scoring as the previous one, 27-24 for the Bengals-Chiefs, 20-17, but I think a lot of people were counting out the Rams in this one. You saw them down 17-7. People were like, this was kind of be expected. The 49ers, kind of having their way with on both sides of the ball. And then, Matthew Stafford and the Cooper Kupp connection is real. And they just kept Cooper Kupp. And I know you could probably go on a tangent. The man's always open. He's wide open, nonstop, 24/7. He's like 7-11. I mean, the man is I don't even know if defenses just are like, no, we're not guarding that guy. But I'm curious exactly what the Bengals do. I mean, we saw them kind of clamp up on Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill on the second half. I'm curious what their game plan is for Cooper Kupp, but we'll talk about that next week, obviously a little bit more. But congrats to the Rams. I mean, they said this, we're all in, and they made it to the Super Bowl, seeing if they can pull it off and win. Obviously, the last Super Bowl they were in, hopefully it's a little bit more entertaining than that one, unless you were a defensive specialist and that's all you wanted to watch. What was that final score, like 9-6 when they were against the Patriots? But congrats to the Rams, and I'm curious what your takeaway from this one was.
I'll guarantee you that this won't be like the Jared Goff-led Rams Super Bowl. That's just not going to be like that. They're not facing a defensive specialist in Bill Belichick this time around. There's going to be more offensive in that matchup. But going back to Rams-Niners, I mean, what was really the difference, and kind of what I said last week in my picks, could the Rams get pressure in Jimmy G's face? And they absolutely did. I mean, Aaron Donald is one of the most hyped, talked about players, on the defensive side of the ball. And it is for good reason. I think he reminded everybody, this past Sunday of why he's always in the top 5, top 10 NFL players year in and year out, because he just wrecks a game, right? Jimmy G doesn't have time to step up in the pocket or improvise at all because Aaron Donald's breathing down his neck. And then to add on to that, you got Von Miller. You've just got all of these pass specialists. And Jimmy G gets a lot of heat for just being a mediocre, can't finish, can't lead you to the promised land quarterback. I think that's a bit unfair. But the Rams defense definitely did what they needed to do as far as stopping Jimmy G. And offensively, yes, exactly. We talk about Cooper Kupp all the time being open, and it blows my mind always how he's always open. But I mean, that offense is certainly clicking. I think, we can talk about Odell Beckham Jr. too. When Robert Woods went down, I think there was a lot of people, myself included, like, ooh, is Odell going to necessarily be able to fill the Robert Woods role, in a decent fashion? I think he's far exceeded expectations and kind of reminded people of what he's capable of doing. So, hats off to Odell too for rising up.
Yeah, he's earning a big payday every single win. I mean, I think this past one was like $750K if they win. The Super Bowl is like $1 million. So congrats to him on piling up the incentives. But Yeah, I mean, I think you got to be happy for Odell Beckham Jr. Obviously, he does a lot of antics, on and off the field. He is who he is. He's Odell Beckham Jr. for what we've grown to know and kind of love or hate him over the last 7 years of his career. But he has stepped up in the place of Robert Woods, and they would not be in the Super Bowl, I don't think, if it weren't for Odell Beckham Jr. And no offense to guys like Van Jefferson or Ben Skoranek who dropped the touchdown. But still, like Odell has given them that second guy. And whereas, they can't put, 11 defenders on Cooper Kupp. Whereas I think if they didn't have Odell, they probably could. But he's seen a ton of one-on-one, and he's beaten that time and time again. And he stepped up on Sunday playing super well, had over 100 receiving yards, I believe. And he's really been awesome. Now, is he Robert Woods? No. And I think that's credit to Sean McVay, who's changed the offense a little bit. I mean, Robert Woods, you think about a guy that they're throwing bubble screens to, they're throwing those short routes, and he's getting yards after the catch. Very similar to a guy like Cooper Kupp. And that's not really Odell's game. He's more of a finesse guy. He's going to beat you with route running and things like that. So it's a different offense now. Shout out to Cam Akers, had a decent game. He did get injured. And then Tyler Higbee also got injured in that one. I mean, we got to say credit to Kendall Blanton. I mean, who? Yeah. Who? I mean, he scored a touchdown 2 weeks ago, but Kendall Blanton really stepped up, and he made 6-7 catches for like 50, 60 yards. So he played a big role. It wasn't just Cooper Kupp, but ultimately, I mean, I looked at the odds for Cooper Kupp touchdown. Do you know what the odds are?
-150.
Minus 210 on FanDuel. At least that's what I saw. Granted, FanDuel does normally juice the heck out of the odds, but I mean, it's literally like every single touchdown they score, it's Cooper Kupp or it's a field goal. You might as well just live bet that at the at the beginning of the drive.
There's no value betting it solo. You have to pretty much bet it like first half or first touchdown or some weird bet like that for it to cash, but it still stands a really good chance even at that. I mean, Cooper Kupp he's a touchdown machine. I mean, that's what he does. But yeah, I'm curious to see how that offense functions without Tyler Higbee though. Or, we don't know his injury prognosis, especially, this far out, but I mean, it didn't look good. And I mean, it's one of those things. They're not exactly deep at that tight end position. And you know what? If Cincinnati, they have a lot of extra time to think about how they're going to but contain Cooper Kupp, because no one stops him. He's still going to get his 80 yards plus, right? But how you contain him, how you maybe contain Odell Beckham. I am very, very interested to see with this extended time what happens.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I mean, the Bengals obviously are going to have a ton of time to game plan, and so will Sean McVay. He'll have different ways to get Cooper Kupp involved and get the running game going. We'll see how Cam Akers. I know the Bengals defense, rushing defense, hasn't really played that well of late. Now, their secondary has been absolutely unreal. Their pass rush has been great, but they've been getting gashed for yards per attempt. Like we saw Josh Jacobs, wild card weekend, have a pretty good game. Even last week, you even saw Clyde Edwards-Helaire running pretty well. Only problem, they only gave him like 6 carries, but he had 36 yards, averaging like 6 per attempt. And Jerick McKinnon played well. Yeah. So that's going to be, I assume, of area of focus, stopping Cooper Kupp in the run. Because this Rams offense, just like I do, this team wants to run the football. It just so happens, they got Cooper Kupp and Matthew Stafford, so they're not afraid to throw it for 300 yards. But normally a Sean McVay offense is led by the run and then setting up the play action pass.
Absolutely. That's going to be the game plan. And we'll definitely, dive into more of what we think is going to be the keys to success for each of them, next week too. But it's setting up a really cool matchup. I'm excited for it.
Yeah, we'll talk a little bit more about this one all next week. We'll give you guys we'll prepare some player props or maybe some dart throws or something crazy.
Absolutely.
But that's going to do it in terms of the football talk. We're going to talk about some other things that have happened in the football world. None bigger than Tom Brady. He has retired.
Wait, who?
Yeah, sorry, I got to look him up. Who is this? Yeah, Tom Brady, probably the greatest of all time. I don't know if there's much of a question about that one. At least the most decorated athlete in the NFL in NFL history. But Tom Brady's retired, no longer. I mean, I know Adam Schefter broke the news like on Saturday or Sunday or whatever it was. I was a little bit skeptical. So I guess Tom Brady should probably be releasing this news, not other people. But regardless, Tom Brady officially announced today on Tuesday when we record the podcast and post on Wednesday that he's retiring. I want your initial thoughts.
I mean, greatest of all time, and it's not even close. I mean, Tom Brady he might even be in the Mount Rushmore of athletes of all time. There's a compelling case to say he might be the best athlete of all time. He's a generational talent that it will feel weird next season turning on the TV and not seeing Tom Brady on our screens for sure. That's going to be really weird because he's just that presence in the NFL that's plagued certain franchises like the Jets for all those years. And the Jets were extremely happy to see him retire. But yeah, we can give Tom Brady his flowers all day, but as a Carolina Panthers fan, thank God, get out of my division, Tom Brady. I'm so happy. I'm so happy he's retiring, and the NFC South is going to be an absolute toilet of a division. I mean, come on, man. The Buccaneers are going to be searching for a quarterback. Oh man, but Tom Brady, I mean, he finished out his career on his terms. That I think was important. And like we didn't watch the Tom Brady decline, right? He was still playing sharp. He was still playing a high level of football. We didn't have to watch the decline, kind of like what we saw with Peyton Manning, where we saw noodle arm Peyton Manning not being able to complete a pass over 15 yards and be like, yeah, it's time to hang it up. We didn't see that with Tom Brady. But I mean, kudos to him for just an amazing career.
Yeah, very similar to like Ben Roethlisberger. I mean, sure, he had an okay season, but it was kind of like, please, can you retire after week 8 any sooner? But yeah, you got to give Tom Brady, and we could have a whole podcast talking about him. And sure, has he played many New York Jets? Yes, for the better half of my whole life. In fact, he's just absolutely destroyed my teams. And since kind of a change of the tide, once he went to the Buccaneers, out of the division, I was like, I can support him, and root for him because. He is, and I don't think there's much question. He's definitely on the Mount Rushmore at like best athletes of all time. I mean, this guy has dominated the NFL. I mean, he has like 12% of the NFL career Super Bowls or something. You could go back and just list a ton of ridiculous stats about Tom Brady, and you'd be like, "What? That's real?" I mean, this guy is 44 years old. Easily could have played next season, and he put up probably one of his best seasons ever. And he's 44. I mean, it's great to see him retire on his own terms. And you're right. It was no fun watching Peyton Manning go out there. And Broncos had to start Peyton Manning. It wasn't like you could bench him, but it was rough to watch. And sure, he went out on top as a Super Bowl champion. But I mean, Tom Brady, you can't blame him much for this year's, this year's loss to the Rams, who are now in the Super Bowl. And last year, he obviously came into Tampa, won a Super Bowl for him. So props to him. Congrats to him. I'm excited to see what he does next. I'd pay him good money to replace Joe Buck or Aikman. I'd salary too, if possible. But I mean, you think about if this guy wants, it's just crazy to think about, if this guy wants to go into broadcasting, every single job will be open to him. I mean, Tony Romo's not safe. I mean, no one's safe. I mean, everyone's going to want him if he does want to go into it. Whether he wants to do it or not is up to him. But man, what a career!
I know. I want to see Tom Brady in the broadcast booth really badly. He's just one of those football minds that it's so cool to hear him in interviews. And Drew Brees, Sean Payton, those sort of football minds too. I love hearing ex NFL players in the broadcast booth. Aside from Troy Aikman and Joe Buck, they just make me want to watch the TV on mute because they're just idiotic, and I can't.
And Chris Collinsworth, he's not safe either.
Yeah, well, Chris Collinsworth is a dodo bird. I don't know what he is, but he's
pretty cool. Now I think about it, Tony Romo in place of Chris Collinsworth with Al Michaels.
That'd be cool.
I'd kind of like it. Sunday Night Football. I'd be excited to watch even the bad games just to listen to Brady.
Yeah, I'm down. Let's make it happen, NBC. I'll pay good money for that.
But yeah, I mean, it's fun to listen to those guys, and we'll see what his next adventures are. I mean, it seems like he wants to spend some time with his children, so much respect to that. Can't blame him. We'll see if the football comes itching back to get him back into playing. But man, what a career! And so that I want to segue that into a question from Mike, aka my dad. He asked, who's the next generation of QBs to take over now that we've seen, obviously, the Mannings, we've seen Drew Brees, we've seen Tom Brady, Ben Roethlisberger, and Philip Rivers, all retired. And, it was crazy to think about. And I saw a picture of all those guys, all side by side. It's crazy to think about. I mean, when we started watching football, these guys were at the beginnings of their career. Now, I might not remember, Philip Rivers' first year, Big Ben's first year, and how great he was. But, as I grew older and started watching football, these were the guys I expected to see every single Sunday. And were guys that were more or less pretty reliable. They didn't miss any games. And now all, 1, 2, 3, 4, all 6 of them are out of the league. It's crazy to think about.
Yeah, well, it's one of those things. Like I said, you're going to turn on the TV and you're going to watch around the league, and you're just going to be like, how I remember when the Saints had Breeze. I remember when the Chargers had Philip Rivers. Like these are athletes that we watched so many years, and now they're gone. But look, a new era of football is being ushered in. And it's led by, what I like to call, and Madden likes to call, the bazooka arms, right? The Josh Allens, the Patrick Mahomes, the explosive athletes playing quarterback position that I'm sorry, Peyton Manning, Drew Brees, Roethlisberger, None of them ever had the arm talent of Patrick Mahomes or Josh Allen. These two quarterbacks, alone, when they dueled it out in the epic game, I mean, they showed us what the future of the NFL looks like. It looks like them. And it's so bright in specifically the AFC, I think, because, I mean, you got the Mahomes. You've got even Joe Burrow on the scene, second year. I mean, I'm so excited. You've even got, Justin Herbert behind him. It's like there's so much talent specifically in the AFC side. The NFC's lacking really on the quarterbacks. I mean, just off the top of my head, I'm like, oh man, there's a lot of divisions. There's a lot of teams in the NFC. Like if I'm a quarterback or a free agent or something, I'm like, I want to go play in the NFC, specifically NFC South, right? With that trash division. But it's like, I mean, I'm thinking of all the young talent in the AFC, and it's really, future is bright for sure.
Yeah, there's with the ushering out of all the older guys, there's just been an absolute influx of talent. And you named a bunch of the guys that I was going to say. I mean, Burrow, obviously Pat Mahomes, obviously Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, even Lamar Jackson, who I think people forget about, but I still do. I mean, he's a reigning MVP. He's not a scrub by no means. He just was banged up at the end of the year. There's so much talent. That's just the AFC alone. I mean, and we're not even talking about guys like Zach Wilson. I gotta get his name in there.
We're not talking about him.
You gotta. Hey. I'll give Mac Jones. Do I get some flowers if I put Mac Jones in there? But even those young guys, where they have a lot of promise. They could really turn it around. I mean, last year people might have said things about Joe Burrow. They're like, is this guy a guy kind of thing? But he stepped up and proved everyone wrong this year. And so there's so much young QB talent in the league that's ridiculous. Just in the AFC alone. I mean, you flip over to the NFC. Obviously, you have the Herbert. Probably, is there anyone with a brighter ceiling in terms of that? I mean, I'm going to have to pull up the teams now. I can't. Kyler Murray's obviously out there.
The NFC, you've got Kyler. I mean, Russell Wilson's getting up there in age.
Russell's who knows what happens to Russell Wilson this offseason?
That's what I'm saying. Like, there's a ton of question marks. It's really weird how it's divided. It's like the AFC has a lot of teams with the quarterback position figured out. In the NFC, it's going to be a carousel of quarterbacks over there. I mean, really, like there's so many teams you can look at and say, I don't really know what they're going to do next year. So I'm excited.
I don't know why I said NFC for Justin Herbert.
That's AFC big dog.
I'm an idiot. But yeah, I'm looking at the teams here. Obviously, Russell Wilson, 49ers. You'd assume Trey Lance era starting. Kyler Murray, then the Matthew Stafford for the Rams. Then who knows what the heck the NFC South. I don't know if any team in there has their QB situation figured out. Exactly. No, I don't know. I don't. And none of these teams. I mean, the Panthers are the closest, yet the farthest away from figuring it out. Falcons, Saints. I mean, who do you think replaces Tom Brady, though, for the Buccaneers?
Yeah, okay. All right, hold on.
I just did this, so I'm sorry. I'm sorry, viewers. Skip forward a minute.
Hold on to your hats, ladies and gentlemen. The answer to who's going to replace Tom or who should replace Tom Brady, the man's in the building. He's in the same locker room as Tom Brady already. His name is Kyle Trask. Let me introduce you to one of the best, quarterbacks at the University of Florida behind me in recent memory. I mean, it's Kyle Trask absolutely put up great numbers in the SEC, a high level of football. And can he do it at the next level in the NFL? Sure, why not? The Bucs, took him to sit behind Brady for a year, and they're like, why not, right? Why can't he be the heir apparent to Tom Brady in Tampa Bay? Look, as a Florida Gator alum, I would absolutely love to see Kyle Trask there. He's got potential. I mean, come on, there's a lot worse backup quarterbacks than Kyle Trask, and if it's not Kyle Trask, I'm sure you'll probably say the better solution is probably like a veteran quarterback, right?
When I think about it, I've seen like Aaron Rodgers. I would be dumbfounded if he went to the Buccaneers.
He's not there.
He would never, because he doesn't want. No one wants to follow Tom Brady in his footsteps. No one, absolutely. I mean, you're only setting yourself up for failure. So I could see them turn into a young guy like a Kyle Trask. That would be interesting. I could see them. I don't know. I really don't know. They could go to some different routes. And
Jimmy
see exactly
G.
I don't see them wanting to do that. I mean, I've seen people do the memes of like Jameis Winston coming back, and that'd be lit. That's
I would love that.
So I'm curious what exactly they do, because you're right. Like on the side note, like a Russell Wilson, would it be cool to play with all the talent the Bucs have, which the Bucs still have some talent to assess this offseason. Obviously, still Mike Evans under contract. Rob Gronkowski, had bet money that he retires. And then Chris Godwin, obviously coming off ACL injury, and he's a free agent as well. So who knows what he, which stinks for him, but who knows what, he bargains or gets in the offseason. But I mean, hey, on one hand, you have you don't want to follow Tom Brady. On the other hand, you might only need 8 wins to make the playoffs. Maybe not even 8.
In that division, absolutely. But when I look at the Tampa Bay Bucks roster, it was like in a ready, championship mode, with Tom Brady, add Tom Brady to it. It's like, do they just blow it up? Do they completely blow it up and say we're going young, we're going to be in a rebuild mode? I don't know. I don't know the answer. I think it's dependent upon how free agency, how the draft, how everything works. And yes, there are some more veteran quarterbacks that they might be able to go out and target, like you said, the Russell Wilson. Aaron Rodgers better not go to Tampa Bay because he'll get all the smoke. He does not want that. That's not the Aaron Rodgers way to follow behind
He
Tom
likes
Brady.
being in Green Bay or maybe even Denver or something like that. He could even retire for all we're curious about, which would just be another one of those generational QBs to retire.
I'm gonna go out on a not so bold limb, in my opinion. I don't think he's even leaving Green Bay. I just think they're gonna figure it out, and I think maybe they'll somehow find a way to keep Devontae there. But I just don't see the Packers saying Jordan Love is the answer. I know they don't think that. So I mean, we've seen what Jordan Love looked like on the football field, and it wasn't very good. I'm not even gonna lie to you. That was not a good football product.
Yeah, no, that was not. It was ugly. And I'd be surprised to see Rodgers leave. I mean, it seemed like they kind of figured things out throughout the offseason, but they do need to sort something. I mean, I don't see Devontae Adams leaving. I mean, it's going to be so hard for Adams to leave. He could be franchise tagged easily.
Yeah.
Whereas Rodgers can leave if he wants. So there's a lot, I'm sure, as free agency approaches, I believe the beginning of March, if I'm not mistaken, we'll talk a lot more about the free agents and where guys are going, reacting, and giving you our recaps or reacts. Yeah. But let's hop into some reactions to head coaching hires. Now, the first one, which was probably one of the most recent ones, Brian Daboll. The Bucks or Bills wasn't either offensive coordinator, I believe, signing with the New York Giants. What's your initial thoughts on this one?
I thought, wasn't he? He was offensive coordinator for the Bills. Yeah, I forget which coordinator or which side of the ball he was on, but I mean, yeah, this is a very New York Giants hire. It's just not sexy. It's not something that got their fan base excited. I mean, to me, the Giants are pretty much one of the most unattractive head coaching jobs, and if Brian Daboll can be their savior, kudos to him. When we talk about these head coaching hires, it really is hard to speculate, as far out as we are, how these teams are even going to look, be it the draft, be it free agency. But the Giants are truly a mess. You gave Kenny Golladay all that money to do what? To get as many touchdowns as you and I sitting here. Come on, man. They're a mess. They don't really have a quarterback that they half believe in. So Brian Daboll's got his work cut out for him for sure. At least he plays in a somewhat easy division. I mean, that's silver lining for him.
Yeah, I mean, when I look at it, and I forgot to mention another young QB that has potential, and we'll talk about it in a second. So never mind. When I saw this hire, I thought this was probably the best head coach the Giants have had, and they took an opportunity on him. And could he pan out and not be anything? Sure, but what I think they finally did was focus on an offensive-minded coach and someone that's had a lot of success with another young quarterback in Josh Allen. And they're giving Daniel Jones, I think, one last year to say, you know what, this is your year. You stink it up. They're kicking you to the curb. And so I think that's awesome for Daniel Jones. I know Brian Daboll's already talked about Daniel Jones being the starter and how he was already in the office or already in the gym working before Brian Daboll even showed up to the facility. So I'm excited personally for Daniel Jones just because I want to see him succeed. I don't like seeing, young QBs just absolutely, and it's not his fault. He's on the New York Giants. This team, they signed Kenny Golladay, couldn't get done. Their offensive line absolutely stinks. And so I'm excited to see the Giants. I believe they have 2 first-round picks, if I'm not mistaken. So I'm excited to see exactly what they can do and actually give Daniel Jones a chance because he really, honestly, has been dealt with a very bad hand, very similar to Sam Darnold, who the Jets completely just like, nope, get out of here. And it wasn't really Sam Darnold's entire fault. And it's not Daniel. I mean, we've seen flashes of Daniel Jones being great, really having some good games, and flashes of him being bad. So I think they're going to have to, look at some consistency. But I think this was a good hire for Brian Daboll to the Giants. And I believe they brought the Bills, I don't know, not their offensive coordinator because this is obviously him, but they brought the guy right underneath him, and that will be the offensive coordinator to the Giants as well. So I'm excited for them. Hopefully they can at least be decent because this division, I mean, the Cowboys are due for some regression next year. They're not getting nearly as many turnovers as they got last year. Eagles are still a work in progress, and the Washington football team, I mean, who knows? So they got an opportunity in this division.
No, there is opportunity. I hope he, for the Giants fans. I mean, it's just a bad football product to watch whatever they were trotting out last year. So it's like it's one of those jobs, and we're going to talk about some more that it's like there's a lot of room to grow, and even like an 8-9 season would be to me a really like just the Giants to be sniffing the playoffs. I think would be a really much improved season for Daboll.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think there's a lot of room for growth there with the Giants, and I think they're going to step up and be much better next year. So we'll see exactly how they play it. But the young quarterback that I was going to talk about also had a new coaching change, Justin Fields of the Chicago Bears. Now they got Matt Eberflus, the defensive coordinator. He has a fun name to pronounce, but defensive coordinator of the Colts. What's your initial takeaway on this one? Because I have one.
Yeah. So I mean. So the solution, first of all, this was funny. They fired a Matt and Ryan, and they hired a Matt and Ryan. Like they fired Ryan Pace and Matt Nagy, and they bring in a new general manager and coach with the exact same first names. I just thought that was funny as well. It's been talked about.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Yeah, I mean, it was so broke. Matt Nagy, I'm sure Bears fans helped Matt Nagy pack his bags. But I don't know. Is Matt Eberflus going to necessarily be the answer? Can he get the most out of Justin Fields? Depends on who his offensive coordinator is and who he hires on the offensive side of the ball. Because you know what? The Bears defense has never really been the thing that causes them problems. They just can't. I mean, offensively, they just haven't had anything good in several years. I mean, I don't know. I don't know that this was necessarily the hire that Bears fans were looking for. I mean, they probably wanted more of an offensive mind, more of like a Josh McDaniels type mind.
Hey, no spoiler.
Yeah, no, I know. They were hoping more for that. But I mean, at the end of the day, Justin Fields, he could take a big leap next year, or he could sadly regress. So I'm really curious to see how that plays out.
Yeah, when I saw the Eberflus hire, I was like, I don't really love getting a defensive-minded coach to be leading this. I mean, their defense, like you said, hasn't been bad. It's been decent over the past couple of years. The offense was putting them in brutal positions. So they did hire the Green Bay Packers quarterbacks coach, so he'll be their new offensive coordinator. So that's promising. Whether or not it was, how much of the work did this guy do versus Aaron Rodgers just saying, dude, just go eat some gummies on the sideline. Like I got this covered. I don't know, but still, it's going to be interesting. They have said, I mean, I'm just reading the article that they're going to build the offense around his strengths, something that Matt Nagy refused to do. And ultimately, that probably led to his firing. But still, I'm excited for Justin Fields, another young quarterback that I'm rooting for him to succeed. And Jeremy, our good friend, is obviously a Bears fan, so I don't want to see him in misery. No one wants their friends in misery unless maybe they're a Patriots fan. Then maybe I'll allow it. But I'm excited for this one. And I think a cool hire and maybe something that might not get looked at too much is their hiring of Ryan Poles. I think do you pronounce his last name Poles? But either way, he's an offensive lineman in the NFL. And I think that's one of the biggest things is this offensive line has absolutely been putrid over the past couple of years. It's David Montgomery just being handed the ball and saying, hey, bud, you're being tackled 3 yards in the backfield. Good luck. And then he makes the most out of it, but still never able to succeed. And so they finally should be able to give Justin Fields some time. I wouldn't be surprised if in the draft they focus on offensive linemen, trying to shore up the trenches. But I'm excited for the Bears. I think that, I'm sure as Bears fans were probably hoping for one of those, probably a Brian Daboll or Josh McDaniels, which we'll talk about in a second, that, more of those sexy hires. But you never know with Eberflus. I mean, he does look a little interesting, though. Have you seen a picture of Matt Eberflus?
No, I don't know what he looks like, to be honest. I don't keep up with Colts football. But I mean, talking about X and O's.
Maybe I was thinking about a different person. I was thinking about someone different, but he's a handsome man. Sorry, okay, we're getting off.
Whoa.
He's
no. Flag on the play. No, flag on the play. You've now been canceled. But I mean, last thing on the Bears, the division's up for grabs potentially if Aaron Rodgers leaves, which I don't think he is, but I'm just saying. The NFC North could look a lot different. So
the Vikings might have a new head coach.
Yeah, exactly.
One of the Harbaughs. What, Jim
Yeah.
Harbaugh? I've seen some reports to him going to the Vikings, which would be very odd. But I don't know if there's anything really to take away from that. It's just odd.
No, it is odd, and if you listen to more, like, with National Signing Day coming up, I don't know how the events are going to play out again. If you're watching this or listening to this podcast later in the week, something a bigger domino might have fallen already. But I know Jim Harbaugh wasn't even being in Michigan for recruiting. I think he was staying in Minnesota, which is just odd. If you're the head coach of the Wolverines, that you would skip out on recruiting day like that. But I mean, yeah, signs are pointing to Minnesota as a front runner for Harbaugh, but it's like, the NFL was a different NFL back when Jim Harbaugh was coaching and when he was having his success. I mean, think about when Jim Harbaugh was the coach of the 49ers. You had Colin Kaepernick, kind of like he was the beginning of the era of the running quarterback, with the Cam Newtons and all those. And I mean, who he had on defense too. Navarro Bowman, Patrick Willis. He had generational talents on that side of the ball. If you potentially go to Minnesota and inherit that Vikings team, it looks a lot different than what you were coaching, especially if Kirk Cousins is still that quarterback. I'm just saying, Jim Harbaugh would be such a weird out of the blue hire.
It'd be a Vikings hire, though. It would be a Vikings move.
It would, but it's just, if I was a Vikings fan, I wouldn't be excited about it. Jim Harbaugh he finally conquered his Ohio State Demons, and he threw an immense celebration for winning the Big Ten, and they got stomped by Georgia. So it's like what do you want? Why do you want that as your football coach? I don't know.
I wish I had the answers for you, Logan, but sadly, we do not have the answers here.
No,
we'll see. It's the Vikings. That's what they do. But let's move on the brighter terms. One of the biggest and I thought the coolest hires was Josh McDaniels to the Raiders. Now, Rich Bisaccia or whatever, I thought he was going to get the job, and maybe he'll probably stay on the roster, hopefully, or on the coaching staff. I hope at least. But talk about Josh McDaniels, a guy that's been literally in coaching rumors every single offseason, probably the last like 5 to 10 years. This is a guy that's like, hey, you're number one on the list. And he's like, nah, I'm good. And then he goes in and just takes the Raiders job. And I couldn't be happier for the Raiders. Obviously, have some Derek Carr, not issues, but things to sort out with Derek Carr over the offseason, whether, to extend him or what to do. But I would imagine if I'm Derek Carr, I'm like, I kind of want to stick around in Las Vegas and play with McDaniels. I mean, McDaniels is an offensive-minded guy. And this team, I mean, you talked about the defense, which played well towards the end of the year. And the offense had some, faults and whatnot. But I'm excited for the Raiders. And as a guy, I mean, like we talked about in the wild card matchup, we both love the Bengals, but we also love the Raiders. We both wanted to root for both of these two teams to succeed. And obviously the Bengals have now made it farther into the Super Bowl, but I'm excited for the Raiders' future. They got a lot of talent there, a lot of grit, and a lot of fun. And they got Vegas on their side.
Absolutely. I mean, having the house on your side. I know, but I mean, you think about Josh McDaniels. He's returning back to the AFC West, which is a cool storyline because he gets another bite at the apple, right? He coached Denver. Everyone remembers the McDaniels and Tebow era, right? That was a fun time. But I mean, he was a really young coach. He said, I'm pretty sure before, he wasn't ready and everything. Going back to Bill Belichick and learning under him, this is the opportunity I think he was waiting for. This was such an appealing job for McDaniels, especially if I put myself in his shoes, I'm like, absolutely. The Raiders job checks a lot of boxes. I mean, you've got brand new, very beautiful stadium. You've got a really cool location. You got an offensive, side of the ball that's shored up with Josh Jacobs, Derek Carr. As long as Derek Carr continues to improve and stay there, you got Hunter Renfrow. Oh, come on. You knew I had the name drop my boy Hunter Renfrow.
I figured.
Yeah, I mean, the AFC West is super competitive. Hats off to him for embracing that challenge because you got Herbert and you got Mahomes twice a year. But hey, I'm very excited to see what the Raiders do with that.
Yeah, they got a lot of talent on that roster, and I'm just excited to see they don't have I'm looking at cap space at the moment. Not a ton of cap space this offseason. But like I said, they have what's his name? Derek Carr going into his last year of his deal, but they got a lot of talent. I mean, still Darren Waller, they're going to have to pay probably. I mean, they paid him just recently, but he's been getting paid $6 million, but they got a lot of talent here. And yeah, Hunter Renfrow, the legend, Josh Jacobs. There's a lot of talent on this roster. A lot of guys that don't get a lot of recognition, very similar to this Bengals team. I mean, honestly, the parallels between two teams are very similar. I mean, Joe Burrow probably has a little more moxie and a little bit more confidence than a guy like Derek Carr, but two guys that I love rooting for. And
Yeah.
I'm excited. I'm excited to watch this team and see what they do this offseason to kind of shore up their spots and get better. And they had a lot of injuries. I mean, and they had so much turmoil in terms of like they lost a lot of their wide receivers this past season, a lot of their starters coming into the year. So the fact that they conquered all that stuff and then they got Josh McDaniels too. This is, I think, probably my favorite hire of the offseason so far. I mean, it's hard to really beat Josh McDaniels coming under Bill Belichick. And yeah, you're right. He was a young head coach with the Broncos and still made it to the playoffs, won a playoff game with Tim Tebow, which
Yeah, the
we don't
legend.
need your bias in here. We already had enough bias on Kyle Trask. Get lost.
Oh my gosh, Tim Tebow, the legend. That was a fun playoff game. But no, I mean all the all the luck to Josh McDaniels. It's a good hire on paper, right? Like that's what's weird about speculating on these coaches. It's like what's a good hire on paper and what's not. Like I don't know. Bill Belichick to the Patriots, that wasn't a great hire on paper, and we see how that turned out. So I mean, it's just it's weird how the NFL works.
Yeah, that's fair, but we'll see. I mean, that's division's one of the brightest. I mean, obviously Chiefs, now the Raiders, Chargers, Broncos got a new head coach. Who knows what they do the offseason. So excited to see what the AFC West does, but congrats to the Raiders for getting a new head coach. Congrats to all the other teams getting a new head coach. We're going to end off this podcast on a little bit of fun. It's a question from King Sanders. And if you aren't subscribed to King Sanders, go show him some love. He always does NBA best bets videos every single morning. He had a very good January, much better than myself, but don't unsubscribe. But either way, King Sanders, awesome. And he asked the question, where do you live? A little bit of a creeper question, but we'll allow it. And then where would our dream place to live? We wanted to take a sidestep away from, football. Although we do only have about one more week, two more podcasts really where we can spam football into your ears before we have to go to other topics. But Logan, I know you've already talked about where you live, but and maybe you can refresh for the new listeners, but what would be your dream place to live? No,
all right, King Sanders. I'm not falling for it. You're not visiting my house. No, I'm just kidding. But no,
I
do.
live in an apartment 210, third
Stop.
floor.
Stop. No, I do live in Philadelphia. I mean, I live in the city, and I can tell you, it being February 1st, the time we're recording this video, the snow is still on the ground. I would like to move to a place with a more mild climate, right? I grew up in Florida all my life, and this cold weather has taken a little bit of a toll on me. Seasonal depression is real for everybody out there. If you're enjoying great weather states like that, enjoy it. There's a reason people want to move to those places. But my dream place to live is a place that you and our friends we went to this place not so long ago. Week 1, we went to Panthers Jets in Charlotte, North Carolina, and I was walking around that city, walking around that state. I love North Carolina. Ever since I was a little kid, I always wanted to end up there eventually. Such a beautiful state. You get the best of both worlds as far as the leaves changing, the more temperate climate, but it also has some sunshine and warmth. And I can root for my Panthers and go to all the Panthers home games. It would be absolutely great to live in the Charlotte area. So to answer it, King Sanders, I would like to end up in Charlotte, North Carolina.
I respect the answer. I knew exactly you were going to say that. So for my side of the equation, I do live in Tampa, Florida. But where would be my dream place to live? And this was a tough question because I do obviously love living in Florida. Great place to live. But it's kind of like if I don't really want. I don't know. I don't want to be tied down to one place. That's where I'm getting at. I do love. I've always wanted. And maybe, if you guys keep using our sports books sign up links and maybe keep watching the ads and the videos, maybe we can make this possible. But I've always wanted to have two different homes, one in Florida and then one maybe in the mountains or something like that. And then, maybe Airbnb and kind of that sort of style. But I've always wanted to be, somewhere in like the Smoky Mountains with a cool view, not too crazy climate. I don't need too north. Although I would love, to have a home maybe like out in Wyoming or things. But I think it would be cool to have two separate homes and have one maybe like in the Gatlinburg area, Asheville area, and in Tennessee and the North Carolina, and have a home that you can go and just kind of disconnect from all of society and just be able to enjoy your time there. And there's a bliss in being able to disconnect from social media. I mean, there's a lot of toxicity on social media, a lot of different a lot of things going on. It feels like when you have your phone in your hand, it's like you're just kind of constantly glued to it. And so there's some sort of satisfaction being able to set down the phone and go into places without service. And while I'm not necessarily saying I need no service in my future home, but I think a place in North Carolina or Tennessee would be awesome to have just a place to vacation in, go hiking and do all of those sort of things. If that makes sense. I definitely didn't give the best answer, but I gave you an answer.
No, and see, it's questions like these we get to kind of reveal more of our personalities. Because I mean, if you're just watching or listening to us, maybe you just hear us from a sports betting side. But I mean, go watch Austin's little vlog when he did on vacation. And if you don't know the video, you're gonna have to go search for it. But I mean, I'll give you a spoiler.
I'll do them a treat, and I'll put the video link down below.
There you go. Now link it for the people down below. But it gives you the more insight into what kind of person Austin is. You've always struck me as a want to live in a kind of off the grid life, which would be cool. I mean, as long as you're still cranking out the content for the people, that's all we ask. You can't disappear completely off the grid. You have to still have internet. But yeah, you've always struck me as a go live in a weird place off the grid kind of guy.
Yeah, it would definitely be fun. It'd be a change of scenery. Obviously, I don't want to do that full time. I don't need to live in the wilderness. I don't need to become a countryman. Maybe start growing out the beard. I mean,
do it for the people. Hey, 25. If we hit 25,000 subs by the end of February, Austin has to grow out a beard for a month.
I don't know if that's gonna happen. I don't know how to tell you this. I can't grow a beard.
Well, I know. People can see it.
We won't know unless we try. I guess that could be the equation.
There you go.
What you're trying to root for, but. Yeah, it could be, and I like these sort of questions from King Sanders and other people. And maybe we didn't answer the other questions. I appreciate you guys sending your questions our way, and we're definitely going to need them in the coming weeks as we kind of go through, no more football, which was the majority of this podcast. But we have different things we can talk about. We'll obviously have March Madness, which will be cool to talk about. We have a bunch of different cool things coming up, but it is fun to answer these sort of questions. Kind of let you guys know a little bit more about us behind the sports betting, behind my player props. No, I don't do spread picks anymore.
Rest in peace, spreads.
But still, we appreciate you guys for always tuning into the podcast. If you watched this long, or you're listening this long, and if you haven't downloaded the podcast yet, we would really appreciate it. I think last week we beat our most downloaded week ever, so that's awesome. We appreciate you guys all for downloading the podcast. The link's down below. I think I put in the description, download the podcast here, and put a link to callingourshot.com/buzzsprout or something like that. So we appreciate you guys. I'll put that. The video Logan was talking about was my trip to Vegas, which was back last April. So almost coming up on a year. And that was when I placed my first ever bet in Vegas and got the bet slip. Absolute L. But that was irrelevant. And so we appreciate you guys for tuning in to the podcast. We'll be live next week. Same time, Wednesday, 10 a.m. Eastern time. And yeah, we'll be here to talk all about the Super Bowl. We'll come with some, this is what I can guarantee you. We'll come with a Gatorade color. We'll come with the coin flip. I guarantee you, Logan and I will give you guys our picks for those two and maybe some other crazy things that you can bet on just for the Super Bowl. But Logan, any final words for the people?
No, I mean, I appreciate you guys. I appreciate all of you loyal All-Stars. Let's get close to 100. Let's just do it. I would absolutely love to see that. Nothing would make me happier.
Amen. So this has been Austin. This has been Logan. We will catch you guys again next week. Thanks again for listening in. And this has been the Call on Our Shot podcast. You guys have a great rest of your week. I'll see you guys in the next one.